And what were the elements in the comic that made you think this is a film? Because I don't know how much you have used the original visual elements or how much you changed the story.
As you see, the original concept, the basic idea is already super crazy. So it's a very strange idea. There's all the human survivors remain in the learning train, and also the rich people in the front, the poor people in the tail section. 이게 80년대 중반에 나온 이야기인데 어떻게 보면 너무 보편적이고 영원한 주제를 우리가 자본주의에 살고 있는 한은 벗어날 수 없는 주제를 다룬 것 같다는 생각이 들었었고요.
This is a story from the mid-80s and it has such universal and eternal themes as long as we lived in a capitalist society.
근데 이제 뭐 그 기차가 1년에 똑같이 한 바퀴를 돌아서 다시 제자리로 돌아온다거나 여러 가지 디테일한 설정들은 제가 새로 만들어낸 게 많은데 일단 그 기본 발상 그 베이직 세팅 자체가 되게 위대하죠. 독특하고 방금 말한 그 달리는 기차에 생존자들이 있다는 그 발상 자체가.
But the concept of the train that rides for 1 year and goes around to end up in the same starting point, those kind of details I added myself and they're new, but the basic setting and the basic premise was really a truly great one, and that's really kind of an inspirational sort of premise.
And you worked together again on Okja after this, and it is your sort of eco-diptych, because these are two films both about in a way, the end of the planet and what we can do to stop it.
제 사촌이 저기 동물 그 보호 운동하는 그 사촌이 하나 있어요.
I have a cousin who works in animal rights.
She was former the vice president of Humane Society, and 그 사촌이 되게 무서워요. 저한테 막 야 너 고기 먹지 마 막 이러고. 그래서 그 시기에 자연스럽게 그 세계에 많이 깊게 빠져들게 됐었었는데.
This cousin's very scary to me. Just say don't eat meat and things like that. And at that time, I really was able to deeply immerse myself in this world.
근데 사실 그런 주제적인 것도 있지만 사실 틸다와 다시 특히나 틸다가 이제 1인 2역으로 쌍둥이로 나온다는 그게 더 저를 자극했죠. 그런 어떤 영화적 욕심 때문에 더 만들게 된 것 같아요. 옥자도.
So there was a thematic element such as that, but it was especially because of Tilda that I could have her playing two sort of characters as a twin. I think I got greedy from that to make it.
옥자는 사실 처음부터 틸다가 깊게 같이 창작하는 과정부터 같이 함께 했었거든요. 우리 이제 영화에도 보면 코-프로듀서로 같이 크레딧이 올라가 계시지만은.
With Okja, Tilda was actually involved from the very beginning deeply in the creative process, and she's actually credited as a co-producer.
I remember in the very early days when we first knew each other, we very quickly hit on, as everybody does who comes to love each other quickly, favorite films. And I remember we talked a lot about Miyazaki Hayao, and in particular My Neighbor Totoro. And I recognized the very first moment Director Bong showed me. We'd been to the premiere of Snowpiercer in Seoul, and he was taking us to the airport the next day, and in the car, he wasn't driving, I will say, thank the Lord, because as we were driving, he handed me this little image. You're going to find it right now, yeah. I can tell. A little image.
There are a lot of photos.
4 years ago.
None of the ones with Oscars in them. No,
yeah, it was this.
That was it. And it was,
oh, wow.
Yes,
yeah.
an image of a little girl.
You might need to lean forward a bit.
A little girl and a massive pig. And he just sort of showed it to me, sort of, forthcoming attractions, and I was smitten right there. But it did feel that it had a reference. It was sort of, it had a beautiful reverence for My Neighbor Totoro. And of course, also thinking of Miyazaki, those twin sisters in Spirited Away. Yeah. We talked a lot about them, and that's where the Miranda sisters were twins were born, really.
Yeah.
How did you first meet, and how did you first discover each other's work?
We first met in 2011 in Cannes Film Festival. I was one of the jury member of the Camera d'Or, the new director award, and she was there with Lynn Ramsey film.
We need to talk about Kevin.
Yeah.
And we very naturally we met and we did a breakfast.
We had breakfast, a really big breakfast.
Yeah, not a dinner but breakfast, and it was first time we met. But 저는 사실 오래전부터 당연히 팬이었고 서울에서 이제 서울에 있는 작은 극장에서 올랜도가 개봉했을 때 어떤 그 생생한 기억이 있었죠. 그리고 틸다는 괴물에 대한 얘기를 그때 처음 했었던 것 같고요.
For me, of course, from a long time ago, I was a fan of hers. I remember in Seoul, in a very small cinema, seeing Orlando, and I think Tilda mentioned The Host.
Yes, I remember. In fact, the first thing I saw was I was waiting. I remember it so specifically. I went to have breakfast with someone in New York, and in a tiny little cafe, and I went for a pee, and I was waiting for this little loo to be open, and there was a copy of a New Yorker sitting there, and I read the review. I always went to the back of the film reviews, like we all do, and there was, I think, Anthony Lane's review of The Host, and there was something about that great review, which is something about great critical writing, that made me know I had to see the film, and I saw it quite quickly after that. And then I saw everything you'd ever made, including Barking Dogs Never Bite. I managed to find it.
Please forget
it. Go and look for it.
It's a serial puppy killing movie.
Look for it. Look.
I'm so sorry.
Look. You know, there's evolution. You ended up with Okja. All right. But it's amazing. And all of them, you know, they are all masterpieces in their own way, and Memories of Murder and Mother, all of them. And then I met him.
Yeah, it was 2011. Yeah.
So how did you create this character then? Because some of the accounts I've read of Minister Mason describe her as, you know, a little bit Margaret Thatcher and a little bit everyone, including Silvio Berlusconi. I can't quite see, but it's a pretty sort of heady mix as a monstrous authority figure.
And you suggested the Yorkshire accent.
We thought about. We thought about the phenomenon of this train. You know, this is like a free pass for fantasy. And if you're going to have some kind of malign or a tendency towards some kind of malign authority, it's no holds barred. You can go any which way with it. And you don't have to go very far. And remember, this is quite a long time ago, and there were all sorts of examples that we didn't have then, that we have now to draw on. But in those days, we were looking at people like Colonel Gaddafi and Idi Amin and Silvio Berlusconi. Just the way in which there is a tendency in society to find these dictators rather funny and amusing, like clowns. You know, very often there's this sense, and that those dictators can play up to that. And so we thought that we would work with that and turn her into this sort of, you know, she's a construct. That's why I say this fantasy about what was going on in her cabin was real. You know, I don't know what she looks like underneath all those. Maybe those are fake teeth and those ridiculous bottle glasses, and the wig is clearly not fixed on because it keeps moving around. That feeling of her being a sort of, as I say, there are other examples of people with power with mad hair. And
you remember? There was a beginning point of the.
Oh, I wanted it to fall off, and you wouldn't let me. Yes.
독특한 그 미니스터 메이슨 그 룩의 어떤 시작 포인트가 있었어요. 그 레퍼런스가 있었는데 그 박물관 레이디, 우리 그 무슨 사진에서 발견한 건데, 새 박물관의 어떤 그 여자분의 사진을 본 게 있는데.
So there was actually a starting point and a reference to the unique Minister Mason's look. There was a photograph of this lady in a museum, or museum lady.
그분 가발이랑 안경이랑 이렇게 얼굴 느낌 같은 게 되게 독특했어요. 그걸 거기서 출발을 해서 이제 저랑 프로듀서랑 이제 우리 캐서린이랑 같이 틸다의 집에 가서 막 그 하루 종일 막 온갖 걸 다 해본 거죠. 그 트랜스포메이션 어떻게 할 것인지 일종의 그 라이브 쇼 같은 느낌이었어요. 어떤 룩을 만드는.
So her wig, her glasses, the very feeling of her face was quite unique. So that was our starting point. So alongside the producer and Catherine, we went to Tilda's home and we kind of went through this transformation. And it was almost like a live show to look for this look.
It was just, they came to stay and we made lunch, and then after lunch we went into the drawing room, and I mean it was like dress up, and we just started to play like a bunch of 8-year-olds, and I don't know, it just sort of but to be serious, we wanted to have this idea. For example, all these fake medals. I mean, that's real. These people, they give themselves medals. Gaddafi was a great one for giving himself photographs of like honors that he'd made up, and just pinning them on his uniform and making up uniforms. That's a thing.
On surface, but 이 인물의 출신은 그 워킹 클래스일 것이다. 아마 저 앞쪽에 기차에서 무슨 청소하던 사람이었는데 그 윌포드의 눈에 띄어가지고 이 사람이 막 계속 이렇게 그 신분 상승을 해서 미니스터 메이슨이 됐을 것이다. 뭐 이런 얘기도 하고 그랬었어요.
And we also sort of thought that perhaps the starting point for her was sort of working class. Maybe she was at the tail end as a cleaner, but she was sort of spotted by Wilford and climbed up the ranks and kind of progressed in that way. And we would talk about that as well.
And I'd had a little sort of riff in my own mind about Mason and Thatcher, these house builders somehow, and I just thought that she's what Thatcher would have been before Thatcher got all elocutioned and had her hair done. It was just this fantasy about the rawness of that predicament on that train, where you're not going to get edited, you're not going to get cleaned up, because you are free to be as bombastic as you want to.
And also her first image in the movie was also very important, because the movies in the opening movie start from the tail section, so we still don't know what it looks like in the very front section, the rich people. 근데 이분이 와서 이분의 모습 자체가 그 앞칸의 모습을 연상케 해주는 거고, 그 크리스 에반스가 전진하는 만큼만 우리가 기차칸을 볼 수 있기 때문에 그 당분간은 그 테일 섹션에 계속 그 붙잡혀 있어야 되기 때문에 이분의 룩이 중요했죠. 앞쪽 세계를 상징하는.
So when she comes, she's kind of alluding to what it might be like at the front section of the train. You can only see as far into the trains as the character that Chris Evans plays really progresses. So really that was quite important, and that whilst they were sort of imprisoned at the tail section, you didn't know what the front section would look like, but it was really symbolized by her.
We were talking about difficult authority figures earlier, so I have to ask you, you had a run-in with Harvey Weinstein over this film, which was one reason why it was so difficult to see in some places, and I know he wanted to cut 25 minutes. And how did you resolve this? And I believe he objected to the fish scene at the beginning, and there's a story about that.
It's quite many years ago, and me and my DP really loved the shot with the big fish. So it's 냄새가 너무 세가지고 촬영 현장에서는 좀 힘들긴 했었지만은 그 이미지 자체를 좋아했었는데 그 와인스타인님께서 그거를 좀 자르려고 했었죠. 그뿐 아니라 뭐 많은 곳을 잘라내려고 했었지만은.
It had such a strong smell. It was actually quite difficult while shooting, but we really just liked the image itself. But Weinstein was quite keen to cut it alongside many other things he wanted to cut.
So I told him, this is my personal something. This dedicated to my father. My father was a fisherman, and but he does fucking lie. So I feel sorry, but anyway, my father was actually a graphic designer. So, and he said, 왜 빨리 말하지 그랬냐고. 이거 가족이 제일 중요한 거다. 그래서 저거 절대 자르면 안 된다라고 그분께서 얘기를 하셨죠.
So then he replied, "Oh, why didn't you say that before? Family is the most important thing. We must not cut this out."
Yeah, and
But he did.
yeah.
He did cut 20 minutes out of it, and we discovered later, several years later, that was the Academy screener that went out.
Really?
At the time, we didn't know. And actually, there was a screening of that 25-minute cut, the shortened version of Snowpiercer. There was a screening in Paramus in New Jersey, in a huge multiplex.
It's where they do the testing.
Yeah, with
A testing site for films.
with 200, more than 200 audience scoring the movie, and fortunately score was very low because so many things cut out. It's quite hard, difficult to understand the whole narrative. So score was low, so I was happy. Me and my producer was very happy, but the Mr. Weinstein said, "Oh, quite low score, so let's cut out more." He said, and then, yeah. But anyway, in the end, it was very all happy ending. So it was got 리미티드 릴리즈를 하게 됐지만 어쨌든 감독 디렉터스 컷으로 이제 개봉을 시켰기 때문에. 그분 입장에서는 그게 퍼니시먼트였을 수 있겠지만 뭐 우리 입장에서는 되게 기쁜 거였죠. 해피엔딩이었죠.
So it had a limited release, but at least it was a director's cut. Perhaps for him that was a punishment, but for us it was a happy ending.
But it'll be a really happy ending when it's distributed in this country, which it will be, we hope.
Oh, great.
We hope.
Great.